Ulrich has shown in a previous video how to optimize the capacity of a transmission line between two areas. He used in his video an example from the textbook Fundamentals of Power System Economics by Strbac and Kirschen. I highly recommend you to get this textbook because it describes the power market seen both from an economical and a technical point of view. In this video, I will continue the example from the textbook and make a calculation in an Excel sheet so that you can follow the intermediate calculations. After that, I will repeat the calculations in the textbook by applying the power market simulator. And I'll show you that the power market simulator will come up with the same results as in the textbook. Learning objectives. You must understand the example 8.3 in Fundamentals of Power System Economics by Kirschen and Strbac. And you also need to know how you can apply the power market simulator to optimize the size of a connection between two price areas. The content of this video is that I will give a very brief review of example 8.3 in Power System Economics, and then I'll do the calculations in an Excel sheet where we will optimize transmission capacity, and finally we will apply the power market simulator in order to do the same type of optimization. Let us look at the example 8.3 in Fundamentals of Power System Economics. We are now going to build an interconnection between the two areas Bodoria and Soldavia, and we know the marginal cost of producing in Bodoria. This is this value here. This is the marginal price, and this is the power production in area B, and this here is the marginal cost of producing in area S. This is the production, and both marginal prices are in dollars per megawatt hour. This here is the cost of having built a yearly cost of having built an interconnection between the two areas. The K value here is assumed to be $140. And L is the length of the line. This is a 1 year time period. And here you can see the load in the different areas. This is the time for peak load. This is also the time for peak load, and the peak load in area B is 900 and the off-peak load is 150. Here the peak load is 2700 megawatt and the off-peak load here is 450. We start here doing a calculation where we assume that there are no limitation. We can transport all the power we want from area B to area S. In this case, the total cost here will be for producing in the two areas will be in off-peak period 7,650, and in the peak load period it will be $82,650 per hour. And now we start doing calculation. First, we assume that there is no interconnection here, and then the production in area B will be 150, equal to the demand, and the production in area S will be 450, also the demand in area S. And the total cost we can calculate to this amount. And when we subtract the optimal production cost here from this cost here, we calculate the hourly constraint cost here. And then after that, we increase the capacity to 100 megawatt. Then we will increase the production in area B here, and we will reduce the production in area S. And the total cost will decrease, and the constraint cost will also decrease. And we continue with this until there's no constraints costs. We do the same thing here in peak load hours here, and you can see here that the constraints cost will reduce when we increase capacity. After that, we multiply the constraint cost here with the amount of hours in off-peak and peak hours. We do that here in the next slide. This here is the yearly constraints cost here for having no interconnector with a 100 megawatt interconnector, and this here is the annualized investment cost of building such a connection here. And when we add annual cost of having a constraint with the annual cost of building an interconnector, we get these total costs here, and we can see that when we have an interconnector of 400 megawatt, we will have a minimum of the total cost of having constrained and having built a transmission line. So this here is in fact the optimal transmission between the two areas. At this optimum here, the 400 here megawatt, the prices in the two areas are $23 per megawatt hour and $59 per megawatt hour. When we subtract, find the price difference here, it is $36 per megawatt hour. We multiply that with the interconnector here, and we find the bottleneck income. This is the bottleneck income here. And when we multiply this bottleneck income with the number of hours in peak load, we get the yearly income from bottlenecks here. This 56 million euros per year cost. And this here is the cost of having a transmission line of 1,000 kilometers. And we can see that the values here, they are equal. So the annual bottleneck income is equal to the annual cost of having built this interconnector. I will now repeat the calculations done in the textbook here in an Excel sheet. Let us start looking here of the period off peak here. And here you can see the marginal price in area B and the marginal price in area S. When I start here with with no capacity between the two areas, zero capacity, then the production in area B will be 150 and the production in area S will be 450. And when we look here at the marginal price here, as I will set the marginal price in area B is the 150 here, E12 here, multiplied by the slope plus the constant. And the marginal price here will be 11.5. And the same here in price area S. It is the production here multiplied by the slope plus the constant, and $22 per megawatt hour. When we have to calculate the total cost of production, we need to integrate this marginal price, and then we get the total cost curve. And this here is the equation for the total cost in area B and area S. So in this cell I have here, I have included this formula where we have the production in area B and the production in area S. This is the E12 here and the F12. This is the production, and they are multiplied into this equation, and we will then have the total cost here. We do that for when we increase the capacity to 100 here and 200, we calculate the total cost, and we can see that when we have total capacity of 400 megawatt, the prices here, they will be equal. There's no bottleneck, and the total hourly price here, generation cost, it will not decrease any longer because we have reached an optimum. In this case here, we have, it doesn't matter that we increase the capacity, the total cost will be the same. So this here is in fact the cost of a production without any bottlenecks into the system. It is this value we have here. This is the value here. And when we're going now to calculate the hourly constraints cost here, we take this value here and subtract this value in order to get the hourly constraint cost. So this value here, as you can see, it is this G12 minus this cost without bottlenecks. This is the constraint cost. We can see this here. If I just make this here, you can see here that the cost, they will decrease, and when we have no bottlenecks, the price will be zero. Then we do the same type of calculations in the peak hours here, and we have the same marginal prices here, and you can see here that when we have reached a level where we have no constraints, the cost here will be $82,650 per megawatt hour. And this here is the total cost, and then this here will be the cost of having the constraint. And you can see here at this level here, there's no constraint cost. And this here is the total cost without constraints. It's the same value we have here. Now I have calculated the constraint cost in both the off-peak period and the peak period. And now I will add these costs here, and then I get the total yearly cost here. And as you can see here, this here is in fact the price of off-peak multiplied by the number of hours in off-peak, and the cost in peak multiplied by the hours in peak, and then it is in $1,000. So I've subtracted with 1,000 here. So this here is the cost of having the constraint, and this here is the cost of building a line. So here we have an interconnector with 100 megawatt. We multiply this 100 megawatt with these two figures here, and then we get the total cost here of having yearly cost of having a transmission line of 100 megawatt. And this here is the sum of these two costs here. And as you can see, is the same as in the textbook. At 400 megawatt capacity of the transmission line, we have the minimum of the total cost of analyzed investment cost and annual constraint cost. We got the same result as in the textbook. When we look at the economy here, again, you can see you have the marginal price curve here in area B and in area S. You have the cost of having a transmission line here of 400 megawatt. And then you can see here in the off-peak period with a transmission line of 400 megawatt, production in area B was 500 megawatt, and in area S it was 100 megawatt. And in the peak period, the production here in area B was 1,300 megawatt, and in area S it was 2,300 megawatt. And this here is the marginal price in the two areas. There's no bottleneck, so they have the same area price. And here you can see the area price in B and S. And as you can see here, it is just multiplying the production here with the slope and adding the constant value. And this is $23 and $59 per megawatt hour. So when we calculate the congestion surplus here, it is zero because they have the same price here. But when in the peak period, there's the price difference. So we multiply the price difference here with the capacity of the line.
and the 400, and then we get the bottleneck income or congestion surplus here. And when we multiply this congestion surplus with the number of hours in peak loads here, we got the $56 million per year. And this here is the cost of having this capacity, 400 capacity line between the two areas, and they are nearly the same. Now we have done the same calculation in this Excel sheet as it is in the textbook. Now I will do the same type of calculation applying the power market simulator. Here we are inside the power market simulator. We have the two areas we want to do calculations for here. And we have up here, we have the off-peak period and the peak period. We'll do a calculation in the peak period here. And if I click here, you can see that we have approximated the straight line in the textbook with a staircase curve here. We have a lot of power plants here, and each power plant have a capacity of 50 megawatt. And if you increase here from you can see the price here is 10.5. If you go 100 megawatt up here, the price is 11.5. So for each 100 megawatt, the price will increase with €1 per megawatt. And that is the same as in the textbook. If you look at the other area here, we have approximated the straight line marginal cost curve, again with a staircase curve here, with where the units have a capacity of 50. And here, when you increase, here you can see it is €14. If I increase with 100 megawatt, the price will be 16. So for each 100 megawatt increase, the price will increase with €2. That is also the same as in the textbook here. So now what I do here is I do a calculation for the peak period, and I make this here show the results. I get the results here. I can see that the total consumption and production in the two areas is this 3,600. I can see that the total production cost, they have this amount here. The producer surplus is this amount, and the consumer surplus is this amount. These figures here, also the prices in the two areas, I put into my Excel sheet. So you can see here we are in a peak period. The price in VE1 was 19, and in VE2 the price was €67 per megawatt hour. In the peak period, the total cost here was this amount here. You can just check it here. This value here is the same here, and the producer surplus in the peak hour was this here, and the consumer surplus in the peak hour was this value here. Now I've done the calculation in the peak period. I will also do the same calculation in the off-peak period here. Do the calculation here, and then you can see here we have lower prices, and I will also take the results here and place these results into my Excel sheet here. This is the prices in the two areas. This is the production cost off peak, and this is the consumer surplus off peak here, and the producer surplus off peak. These values here they are exactly the same as in the power market simulator, because I've taken the values from the power market simulator. Now we have done a calculation here where we have the transmission capacity of 0. There's no interconnection between the two areas. When we look at the production cost here in peak and in off-peak and compare these results with the analytical calculation, you can see that the prices here, they are higher than the calculation we did when we did the analytical calculation. And the same is for the off-peak period. The reason for that is that we have approximated the straight line with a staircase curve. I'll show you this in the next slide. The marginal price curve in the textbook is a straight line here. In the market simulator, we approximate this straight curve here with a staircase curve. And as you can see here, we will overrate the production costs here because the production cost is only this amount here, but we have assumed in the market simulator that the production cost is this amount here. Let us in the next slide see how this will affect the result. We will start here by looking at area V1. In V1 we have these power plants here with a capacity of 50 megawatts. And we also know from the textbook that each time the production will increase with 50 megawatts, the marginal price will increase with 0.5 euros. And in the power market simulator, when we calculate the production costs here for this unit, we will multiply the marginal cost here, the total marginal cost, with the capacity. This would be the production cost. But we overrate the production cost with this area here. When we're going to make a correction for this overrating, we can do that by this formula here, where we say that 1/2 multiplied with 0.5 euros per megawatt hour multiplied with 50 megawatt hours is equal to 12.5 euros. This here is what we overrate the production cost for each power plant that is in operation. When we look here at VE2, it is the same, but here each time we increase production with 50 megawatt, the marginal price will increase with 1 euro. So here the calculation will look like this here. The deviation here, the correction we have to do is 1/2 multiplied with 1 multiplied with 50, and it is 25 euros too much cost per unit. Now we'll go back to our Excel sheet and make this correction here. We are now back in the Excel sheet here, and we want to correct these values here because they have overrated the production cost. And what we do here is that we say, okay, now we want to do the calculation for zero transmission capacity. We will do the calculation here for off-peak here as an example here. Here, this is the production in off-peak, and we calculate the change in production cost here. And the way we do that is that we take these values we have calculated here and say that when we do this calculation, we say this here is the production capacity in VE1. We divide that capacity with 50 because then we get the number of running units in VE1, and we multiply the number of running units in VE1 with this correction factor here, and then we add the same for VE2. We take the total running capacity in VE2 multiplied with 50. This is how many units that are running in VE2, and we multiply that with this correction factor here. And when we do that, we can calculate the corrected value here. And the corrected value here is, of course, the value here from the power market simulator minus this value here. And this gives this value here. And you can see that this value is exactly equal to this value. So we have now found out that from the power market simulator, we need to correct for that we are approximating the straight line with a staircase curve. We can do that for also for peak calculations here. And then you can see that the peak production cost here is equal to the values we have calculated in the analytic calculation. We then increase capacity here, build a line between VE1 and VE2. We'll do that in the power market simulator. So I will return to the power market simulator. I'm now back in the power market simulator where I will insert a transmission line between VE1 and VE2. I do that here, establish, choose region 1 to VE2. I set 100 megawatt capacity here. Name here, it is V1 to V2, start year 2000, and I add this transmission line. I then do a quick calculation for this peak hour here and get these new values here. I also calculate the total production cost, the producer surplus, consumer surplus, and I insert these values here into my Excel sheet. You can see here I insert all the values here. This is the values here, and I also do here is the values we have calculated analytically, and I also do the correction here factor. And still you can see here that the values here, they are exactly the same here when they have been corrected. I continue doing this here for all the other transmission capacities here, changing the capacity here, and this is the result of the analytical calculation. I also do it here. Yes. So you can see here that with a capacity of 400, we will have a minimum of between 300 and 400, we will have a minimum of the total cost here. And you can also see here that when we have had a capacity of 400 megawatt here, we will have nearly the same marginal cost for capacity, building the capacity of the line, and the marginal reduction of the cost here. They are nearly the same here when we have a transmission line of 400 megawatt. You can see here, what we've done here is that we have done the same calculation applying the power market simulator as we have used when we did the calculation in the Excel sheet. This means that you, in fact, when you're going to make an optimization of transmission between two areas, you need not do the calculations in an Excel sheet. You can apply the power market simulator in order to do this kind of calculations. In this video, I have shown you how to optimize the interconnection between two areas. I have repeated the calculations from the textbook, and I have shown you that you can do the same type of calculation using the power market simulator. So you need not do the very detailed calculation in an Excel sheet, but you can in fact apply the power market simulator if you want to optimize the interconnection between two areas. In the next video, I will show you how to optimize the interconnection between 3 areas and 4 and 5 areas. See you there.